Gung Ho from 1986. This is a film directed by Ron Howard, starring Michael Keaton, Gede Watanabe, George Wendt, and Mimi Rogers. The IMDb plot summary. When a Japanese car company buys an American plant, the American liaison must mediate the clash of work attitudes between the foreign management and native labor. So this film to me was a movie that was on TV a lot on Comedy Central growing up, and that's how I ended up watching this a lot of different times because it was just sort of on. I mean, it was not a movie that was a hit or as well known, but it really exposed me as a young child to kind of two different versions of what work ethic is. One where your company defines you, you're giving everything over to the company, all the things that you're doing are for the company. And that's how the Japanese company is portrayed in this film. There's an opening montage of a manager who messed up, and he's basically in almost like a military training camp, like flogging himself. It's almost like Full Metal Jacket in terms of how he's being humiliated just because he did something wrong at work. That's the Japanese company. And then the American auto union guys are, they like their job, but they're putting their family first. They care about what's going on in their community. Their company doesn't define who they are, and they're working for other reasons. They're working to put food on the table for their family. They're not working because they believe in the company ideals and that sort of thing. I think that's the message of this movie really is that those two forces kind of come together in the end. It was a typical 80s comedy, right? So the Japanese company folks learn that they have learn from the union, and the union learns from them, and in the end they all end up working together to solve the problem that they have in the film, which is all about, again, you're doing this work not for a company or for your manager, you're doing it for your team, which was a very important distinction for me. And that's how I enjoy all the companies I've worked for, but I never worked for them because I believe in some ideal of what the company's trying to do. That honestly I don't care about that. I care about like my customers, my team. What are we specifically doing? And then obviously that's probably going to align with what the company's doing, but I don't take any pride in my company's accomplishments. I take pride in my own accomplishments and the work that I'm doing. I think, this film, just thinking back, and I was like, oh, maybe that's sort of why I'm not a quote unquote company man who toes the company line. Like that means nothing to me. And I think maybe this movie might be why, because I watched it so much as like a 10-year-old. Had you seen this film before?
No, I never heard of it. When I saw the name, I was like, "Oh, is this like a G.I. Joe movie?" Because that's what I thought of instantly. Isn't there like a G.I. Joe Gung Ho or something?
Maybe. I mean, it does sound like
It does
either a
sound
foreign
like that.
film or like some sort of army military
Right.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everything you called out definitely comes through. And yeah, I'm the same way for the most part. Like I would only add that for me, there's like a practical thing that I don't want to be working on something and driving something that is just personally meaningful to me and my team, only to find out later that it has no connection whatsoever with what the company stands for. Because then it's just a waste of time. So I wouldn't want to do that. But yeah, there isn't like, I'm not sort of, charging some flag. I'm the one, I never take any company swag. Never ever. I just have never.
Yeah.
So so yeah. So
that says a lot. Yeah.
That says a lot. I never get anything. I've never kept anything. So but there has to be connection there. So I think the movie definitely gets at that. I think the other thing that's very interesting is just in general, like, how do you work with not just different kinds of people, but like people from totally different cultures and backgrounds. That's another very interesting thing that the movie portrays. And it's not just people who are overseas, but people who actually now come here from the overseas and are living in your town. And how do you engage with them and interact with them? There are lots of things, like how the Japanese folks, they're getting kind of, taken into American pop culture, society, and consumerism and things like that. And how is that shaping their work? And so to me, this was also about like, yeah, you can't just show up in your work mode at work. You bring everything, right? Your life and the influences of what you're watching on TV, the cereal you eat in the morning that you weren't eating like 6 months ago. You ate ramen for lunch, and now just, or whatever else that you ate in Japan, and now your life is different. You bring all of that. And I think to me, those sort of human touches of life were quite apparent in the movie. The movie itself is, it's
forgettable.
Yeah. It's a rich, there's a lot of good stuff in it. And I feel like this movie could have been made in a way where it would be like a classic film. but it's just very long drawn out, and often motivations aren't very clear. And it's the classic 80s. Oh, now these two are going to fight in the supermarket. 10 minutes are gone. All the aisles are down. I'm like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? There's like a lot of that sort of stuff. That said, though, I think Michael Keaton just like prevails through the entire movie. He's just so good.
He's so
I
good at this
forget
role.
what a like innately charismatic, relatable, but also mischievous person he is, that who you would go to bat for, which is so important, because he basically convinces all of his teammates to go bat for these new high productivity markers that he brings in, just to beat the Japanese initially. And to me, that's like a critical thing. Like, why would you do that? And you do that because Michael Keaton tells you to do that. It would not work otherwise. Why would you do that?
No, he's very charismatic, and I also want to call out Gendy Watanabe,
also
who plays
amazing.
the Japanese representative.
He steals the movie. Actually,
he's so good, and in a role that, on paper and also in performance, could have been very stereotypy, leading into potentially like racist kind of jokes and things. But he's a full, well-rounded character who has his own motivations, his own family life, and you see the struggles with his workaholism that takes over, where he's not gonna put together the bike for his kid his birthday because he's too busy working, and then he gradually learns that actually the family is important, and that's what should be motivating him to work. So he loosens up a little bit after seeing how the Americans sort of value, okay, well, I need to take time off because my kid is sick, and I don't productivity is not as important as me being there for my child, or at a school play or something. Like those things are important to the workers in the factory, and the Japanese initially don't understand it. And I think that's what Gendy really does understand, and his chemistry and relationship with Michael Keaton throughout the film too, I think is great. And that easily could have been, I mean, I'm not defending there are some sort of racist jokes in this movie, and some things that don't age super well, the cultural humor. But I do feel that they do have, George Wendt's character is racist, and the movie calls him out for it, and he's sort of painted as a villain because of a lot of the comments and things that he's making. Versus in some of these 80s movies, it's like the racist person's like the funny one, or the movie doesn't kind of comment on that as a negative thing. So actually, because I hadn't seen this movie, to be honest, in like 30 years. And I was like, I wonder if this is going to be like a very, hard to watch sort of as an aged well thing. And yeah, there's some moments, but I was actually surprised how much it wasn't like that. But I think too,
I totally agree with that. Like I give it a lot of credit for just having fully rounded character, especially Gendy's character. And, to me, like, it's sort of true, right? It's so, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen in the real world, where people who look different or speak differently or eat different food, they show up in your land, and you probably do make fun of them, or you do have jabs at them. But for the most part, in my own experience, I think people are mostly curious.
Right.
And they want to understand. And some handle it better than others, but that is generally the motivation. It's a very small minority in my mind who actually has something just like deeply seated that's negative about what is happening. And I think it's that deeply seated negative part which is highlighted so much more, and it's in media and pop culture. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be, because we all should see the ugly sides of humanity, just so we know not to do that and not to go there. But it was also kind of a nice celebration in some ways, that these folks are here, they're totally out of their element. And what could be more foreign than having like Japanese in like a small town, American working class in the Midwest? Like, it's just so different. And I think it's handled fairly well, with like a lot of sort of humanity and decency. And there's also good comedy in there, because guess what? In life, there would be comedy.
Right, for sure.
Like, if we showed up in like a small town, Japanese countryside village town, it would be weird and strange and, delightful and comedic.
Yeah, of course. Right. There's comedy in the classic fish out of water, which I think this movie handles well. But then also I was, I don't want to say surprised, but that this movie doesn't, that's not all that this movie is. Because I was, again, thinking, going back to it, maybe I'd realize this is just basically a fish out of water story, but it is really about, and this is maybe why it affected me so much in terms of my work ethic, was a lot about how you work and what motivates you. and how at the end of the movie, which I did find, you know, a little moving when, so there's a challenge where the Japanese say you have to create X number of cars by the end of the month or else we're shutting the factory down. And initially Michael Keaton tries to motivate his workers with money. Oh, we'll give you this raise if you hit this amount. And they ended up they're not going to make it. And then it's only until they come together and decide that, okay, if we work with the Japanese workers and we all realize we're in this together, and that's what gets them to the milestone. And it's about that solidarity and the camaraderie, and which you feel a lot in the workplace, of everyone just sort of coming together. And the motivation is that the teamwork, and it's not about a selfish, oh, I want this money or I want this promotion myself, because that doesn't lead to good work, or that's a sort of a negative motivation, I feel like. Then look, we're all in this together. You know, I'm going to go into the assembly line and they're all doing their own, you know, the management's coming down, and the Japanese guys are all kind of like dancing around. That was, you know, classic 80s montage of them putting all the cars together where they're all working together. Great. And I just thought that was a great message, and something that I carry into my work ethic too, of like working with the team. And that's really what this is about, like coming together and building something great for all of us instead of a specific financial motivation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I will say though, it is a little bit funny to me that like in this movie, and maybe this is how it used to be, that the American sort of value system around work is about balance and family. And I'm like, that is not true in my experience at all. Like, you know, it's like people are basically, you know, slaves to whatever goals were handed to them and are fighting for those, you know, come hell high or water. You know, I'm consumers of all these devices, so I guess I shouldn't be so negative. But yeah, why does this stupid device have to be the same device in a slightly different box, need to be shipped out every 2 months? No one cares. I don't, but people do. And everybody then joins hands and kills themselves to put these devices outside. So basically nothing has changed, or everything has changed. I don't know.
No, that's a really good point too. When I was looking at this movie now, thinking like actually the way they portray the Japanese car company in this film it seems to be a lot more about the American work ethic, at least nowadays, than it maybe used to be. And maybe we should be going back to more of how Michael Keaton and the union folks used to work, where, you know, your family is important too. But I thought that was, I noticed that too. I'm like, oh, this is not typical nowadays. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.